Hi, welcome back to the next alternative to punishment. I hope you enjoyed the last videos. In this alternative to punishment, we're going to talk about a very powerful technique that I call ask a question and offer a solution. Okay? So in order to understand how this works, we need to understand the power of questions. Questions are like doors. They open to new possibilities. In fact, one of the most powerful things that I ever learned is that the quality of your questions determines the quality of your life. What you ask yourself determines the relationship that you will have with everything you ask yourself a question with. For example, if you ask yourself a question about your child, why is my child so disobedient? Why don't they listen to what I ever have to say? Why are they so difficult? Well, those questions open a door to a very specific room, talking about why they're disobedient, why they're not listening to you, why they're so hard to deal with. However, what if you ask yourself the question, okay, what needs might my child have that are not being met? How can I respond in a way that will meet their needs and help them heal from any type of lingering stress that they might have? You see, the quality of your questions really do determine the quality of the relationships you have with your child or really anyone else. The same thing has to do with your spouse or any person you have a relationship with in your life. The quality of your questions about that circumstance or that relationship will determine the quality of the actual relationship or the outcome, because the questions are like doors. They open into a very specific room that is determined by the question itself. Okay, so that's the power of questions. Now, when you ask your child a question based upon a type of behavior they're exhibiting, then you allow them to open a door, okay? You allow them to open a door towards something that you might want them to look at, or you open the door to new possibilities as well. And it meets their needs for autonomy, it meets their needs for connection, it meets their needs for encouragement as well. Let me give you an example of how this works. One day I was driving along with my son and nephews in the van, okay? And my nephew in the back, Johnny, he started kicking the ones in front. And so I looked in the rearview mirror and I said, oh, okay, this is going to escalate really quick, because the ones in the front were already starting to elbow him and they're starting to complain and they're starting to get really vocal. So what I did is I pulled over, okay? And I pulled over, and that's a very important thing here, because by pulling over, I'm basically stopping the situation. I'm showing them through my example that something is off and I'm going to step in and give it my full attention, okay? And that's exactly what happened. As soon as I pulled over and I put the van in park, I turned around. They weren't kicking each other. They weren't talking to each other anymore. They were staring at me because they wanted to see what I was going to do. Now, instead of responding by punishing them, yelling at them, getting upset, what I did is I said, what's going on? And then the two ones in the front, they said, well, Johnny in the back here, he's kicking us. And we don't want that. He's kicking us and it's not fun and he's not being nice and da-da-da. They started blaming him. But rather than taking their side immediately and taking the situation at face value, I wanted to give Johnny the benefit of the doubt. And this will allow him to figure out, to come to a solution himself. Because I'm trying to empower the children to empower themselves. I don't want to just be an authority and say, that's not how it is, and get upset at them, get angry at them, and say, if I hear one more thing, then you're all going to be punished. That doesn't work in the long run, because it just builds resentment, okay? Because there's no resolution between the children. One of them feels upset at the other one for getting them all punished, and there's no fairness and something is off. So what I want to do is help resolve the situation. So I asked a question to Johnny in the back. I said, well, what's going on? And he said, well, I was just trying to put my feet on the armrest and they're not letting me. So I quickly assessed the situation. I realized that Johnny in the back, he wanted to achieve something. He had a desire, but he was missing something. He had an unmet need, and that need was his ability to communicate information, to communicate what he wanted, rather than just assert himself with his feet and then responding aggressively when his feet were rejected from the other children, because they didn't know that he wanted to put his feet there. They just assumed that he was trying to annoy them, okay? So I asked them another question, right? You see how I asked them one question. I asked them two questions so far. First, I asked them all what's going on. Then I asked Johnny, the one in the back, what's going on with you? And then he explained his desire to put his feet in the armrest. So I asked him another question. I said, well, did you ask them? Right? So I'm opening a door to possibility that he can get what he wants a different way. He can get what he wants by using his power of communication. And so he said to me, well, no, right? So now I'm going to offer him a solution, right? So I asked him questions. Now I'm going to offer him a solution that is going to allow for a better outcome to this situation. I said to him, well, why don't you ask them in a kind and gentle way, right? So it was key for me to say a kind and gentle way, because already they were caught up in their emotions. They were starting to get upset at each other and blame each other and not being nice to each other. So I was shifting that, and I'm showing him, I'm demonstrating to him that you catch more bees with honey than you do with vinegar, okay? So the nicer you are, the better the outcomes, because people are, they want to be around nice people, and they're willing to do things for nice people. So if you're nice, if you're kind, you're gonna get good results. I'm teaching him that information. I'm teaching him from a real life situation, okay? So that's what he did. I said, why don't you try to ask them right now in a kind and gentle and nice way? So he asked them, he said, hey, do you guys mind if I just put my feet here? I want to just put them on the armrest. Would you guys mind if I did that? And the two kids in front, they had no problem with that. They said, and because he asked nicely, they felt empowered. They felt like the situation was resolved in a fair way, because they were feeling that he was imposing himself in their personal space in an unfair way, and then it escalated. And the poor boy in the back, Johnny, didn't know how to express himself. He just couldn't think of any other options. So by being the adult here, I was guiding him towards other options after I discovered what was going on and what the needs of the situation were by asking questions. So the key is to ask questions. Whenever a child misbehaves or behaves in a difficult way, you want to ask questions to probe, to try and figure out what's going on. And then from there, you can offer options. You can offer a solution to help guide them towards more appropriate behavior or towards a more appropriate response that will allow for a win-win situation for everybody involved. So another example of this is in my book, Democratic Parenting. You might have read it, where when my son was just a crawler or a toddler, he was drawing on the walls in my house. And I was thinking, oh no, I don't know if this is going to come off. And I was starting to get upset. I'm like, just great, one more thing to clean up around the house. But rather than punish him and getting upset, I asked him, why are you drawing on the walls? And for me, being so young, it was just scribbles. And he said, well, I'm drawing an airplane that's flying in the sky, and it's so cute, right? Like, he's just trying to express himself. He doesn't mean any harm. At that age, he has no understanding of the issue it's going to create for me and why he shouldn't draw on the walls. So I asked him a question, and now seeing that he wants to express himself, that he does want to do art, right? He has a need for creative expression. He has a need for encouragement, right? So I didn't want to take those needs away and punish him, make him feel bad. And he's not going to understand. If I punish him and make him feel bad, he's going to go into the amygdala part of the brain. Remember, he's going to get disconnected. So he's not going to remember the lesson I'm going to teach him in this moment by reinforcing the information that he shouldn't color on the walls. If I got upset and punished him first, he's not going to remember that, because he's just going to feel disconnected. He's going to feel emotionally upset, and his very well-being is being threatened on a survival instinctual level, like I talked about before. So it's going to cause him to go in the fight or flight reaction and not be present and not think clearly. So for the next time, he might just draw again, completely forgetting about the lesson I previously told him. So instead I said, oh, sweetie, that's great, but you know what? Unfortunately, it's not good to draw on the walls, because then I have to clean that up, and we want to keep our walls nice and clean, okay? And then by the time that I have to take to clean this up is going to take away from time that we could play together. So instead, here, there's some paper over here. Draw on this paper. You can draw on paper as much as you want, but remember, don't draw on the walls and don't draw on the floors, okay? But you can draw on this paper. So I gave him a solution, right? I provided him with a better option. I redirected him towards the paper, and at the same time gave him the information he needed that he shouldn't draw on the walls. And because he was open, he was feeling loved, he was feeling connected, he didn't feel like he was being punished by anything. His desire to keep my love and my connection, my approval, is motivating him enough to go along with me. Okay, he doesn't need to be defiant or resistant because he doesn't have any other unmet needs around autonomy, around attention, around encouragement that were smothered by my intervention, right? I intervened, but I made sure that I was meeting him all his needs, and then I gave him a proper solution after I asked a question. So try this out yourself. Just try it out. Ask a question. And remember, when you ask questions, do so from a sincere, loving, interested way. Be interested in your child. If you are interested in your child will be interested in you. If your child is not listening to you, is not paying attention to what you're saying, you have to ask yourself why, right? What have you done? How have you communicated with your child in the past that has trained them? Right? Because you have trained your child through your own response to them. They have learned this behavior to not listen to you. But some way, somehow, you have trained them not to listen to you. Perhaps it's your tone of voice. Perhaps it's because you haven't met their other needs, so they feel resistant, they feel resentful, okay? They feel disconnected from you. So you need to retrain them to listen to you. But when you're interested in your child, they will show you that same interest back. Remember, children model our behavior. So the more loving, connected, encouraging you are, the more interested you are, the more respectful you are towards your children, the more respectful and interested and loving and connected and encouraging they will be towards you. They model your behavior. Now, don't ask them a question where they feel that you're setting them up, right? Because we've all experienced that before with family members or people in our lives, sometimes our own parents, right? They ask us a question and we can feel it's a setup. They're going to use our answer against us, right? So we're reluctant to open up. We're reluctant to really share ourselves and to share how we're thinking, how we're feeling, right? We feel on guard. We don't want to feel, we don't want to be vulnerable because we feel a bit threatened. And we can tell that the question is a setup. This is not what we want to do. This is not asking questions because it doesn't create an openness. We want to create an open trust with our children. If we do that when they're young, then when they're older, when they go into their teen years, when they encounter a lot of difficult, challenging situations where they encounter peer pressure, or they're being encouraged by their peers to engage in type of behavior which would not be good for them, okay, then we want to have such a close relationship, such a strong degree of trust that when we ask a question, they're going to feel free to be open with us, right? When we ask the difficult questions, when we approach the difficult teenage subjects around drugs and sex and what they want to do with their lives and other types of situations, we want them to feel safe and trusting that they can tell us the truth, because that's the way we can positively influence them towards making the correct decisions and avoiding the rebellious types of behavior that can cause them to make the wrong decisions, right? We want to avoid that. So we establish that right now. It doesn't matter how old your child is right now, if they're a toddler or if they're already a teenager, you start now with these techniques, with these alternatives to punishment. Ask them questions and be interested. If you think about it, just go back in your life. Think about those positive role models or those mentors or people that you had a personal connection to in your own life. Go back, perhaps it was someone in your family or someone in your community who you looked up to. Or maybe there's people right now in your life who you look up to. Ask yourself, were they interesting or were they interested? The most interesting people that you know, the best conversations you have with people, the people who you admire, are they interesting people or did they show interest in you? And if you're honest with yourself, you'll see that actually they were very interested in you. And that's one of the reasons that you felt so interested in them. That's one of the reasons you felt so close to them, that you looked up to them, because they cared. Remember, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And then that is something that we need to remember as parents, right? Children, they don't listen to our lectures as much as they model our behavior. They will follow our example more than follow the advice we give them, right? They don't care how much we know about the world until they know how much we care. And if they can feel deep down inside how much we care, if they feel connected to us on a heart level, then we've won them over. We have influence in them. And the way to do this is to use these techniques and tactics and strategies of democratic parenting to influence their behavior and teach them appropriate discipline without using threats or punishments or bribes. Okay? So ask a question and be interested. Be sincere in your question. Don't try and set them up. Don't try and necessarily lead them some way. Ask them a question about why they're behaving that way. Be sincerely curious. And then ask as many questions as you need to in order to gather the information, in order to help direct them, to give them a solution that will lead them towards the result that they want, and it's also good for everybody involved, for the entire situation. That way you teach them to think situationally, not just selfishly. Okay, so ask a question, then offer a solution, an appropriate solution. That's the technique. Try it out, see how it works for yourself. I'd love to get your feedback on this. You can write down your comments below on this page or send us an email again at support@parentlearningclub.com. I look forward to hearing from you, and I look forward to seeing you on the next video. Have a great day, and remember, every single day, give your children all your love. Give yourself that same love too, and together we can build a brighter future.